Commander Raoul stood on the deck of the starship Valiant, watching the planet slowly come closer through the thick glass of the observation window. The blue and green world below looked peaceful from space. Clouds drifted over wide oceans and tall mountains. It was a beautiful planet, but Raoul knew it was more than just a pretty sight. This was the home of a powerful alien empire, one that humans had not yet met face to face. Raoul had been given a clear mission: to scout the planet's defenses and report back. The human leaders wanted to learn more about this empire, to see if it could be a friend or a threat. But Raoul believed it would be a simple mission, just some scanning, some quiet observation, and then return home. He turned from the window and walked to the small room where his crew waited. They were a group of strong and skilled people, ready for any challenge. Some looked nervous, but most were calm. Raoul felt proud of them. Tomorrow we land, Raoul said. Remember, our job is to observe. No fighting unless it is absolutely needed. We must stay careful and smart. The crew nodded. They trusted Raoul's calm and steady voice. As the starship moved closer, the planet's surface grew clearer. There were huge cities, with tall towers made of shiny metal. The buildings looked strange but beautiful, with shapes that curved like waves or pointed like mountains. The cities were quiet. No ships flew above them. No lights blinked. It felt like the planet was holding its breath. Raoul's scanner showed no signs of weapons or military activity near the landing site. It was perfect for their mission. They chose a landing spot near a large city called Xena. It was the Empire's capital. The next morning, the Valiant slowly descended through the blue sky. Raoul watched the ground rise to meet them. The air was fresh, but different from Earth's. He breathed deeply. The landing was smooth. As the ship's doors opened, Raoul and his crew stepped outside. The city around them was huge. Tall towers rose high into the sky, and wide streets stretched in every direction. But the streets were empty. No people or vehicles moved. Raoul felt a chill. Something was wrong. He sent a message back to the ship. All quiet here. No signs of life on the streets. Proceeding with caution. The crew split into small groups to explore. Raoul took the main team toward the center of the city, where the largest palace stood. The palace was enormous, with walls of shining white stone and gates of dark metal. It looked like a fortress, but also like a home. As they walked, Raoul thought about the alien rulers. The Empire was said to be strong and proud. They had technology far beyond humans, but no one knew why their cities were empty. Raoul's communicator beeped. It was a message from the ship. Commander, sensors detect movement near the palace. Be careful. Raoul motioned for his team to stay alert. They moved quietly, eyes scanning the shadows. Suddenly, a soft sound came from behind a pillar. Raoul stepped closer and saw a small figure crouched in the darkness. It was a girl. She looked to be about 10 years old, with pale skin and long silver hair that shimmered under the sun. Her large eyes were wide with fear. She wore simple clothes. Unlike the fine robes of the Empire's rulers, she did not speak but held up her hands, showing she meant no harm. Raoul's heart beat fast. This was not what he expected. Easy, Raoul said gently. We won't hurt you. The girl looked at him for a long moment, then slowly reached out to touch his hand. Raoul felt a strange warmth in that simple touch. He called to his team. We found someone, a child. We need to help her. The girl did not answer, but her eyes seemed to say she trusted them. Raoul lifted her carefully. She was light and fragile. Back at the ship, the medical team examined the girl. They found no injuries, but saw signs of stress and fear. Raoul wanted to ask her questions, but she did not understand human words. A translator device was used, but the girl's language was unknown. The crew called her Mira for now. Raoul spent time with Mira, trying to learn from her eyes and gestures. He saw kindness and sadness there. It felt like she carried a heavy secret. That night, Raoul stood outside the ship looking at the quiet city again. The mission was no longer simple. Finding Mira had changed everything. He thought about the queen who must have sent her here. Why was Mira alone? What danger waited in the shadows, Raoul knew one thing clearly. He would protect this girl, no matter what. The 3 alien ships floated in the air like silent predators. Their sleek black shapes reflected the pale sunlight, and their engines hummed with a low, threatening sound. Commander Raoul stood with his team and Mira in the shadow of an abandoned building, studying the ships. The Valiant was just beyond them, but getting there now meant a fight they might not win. Arn's voice was low but tense. "Commander, we can't take them head-on. Their weapons are stronger than ours on foot." Raoul nodded slowly. "Then, we don't fight them directly. We think." Mira tugged at his arm. She pointed to a narrow alley that curved away from the landing site. Raoul crouched down. "You know another way." She nodded quickly, her silver hair falling over her face. With careful gestures, she showed a winding route that would take them behind the ships. Raoul glanced at Aaron. "We follow her. She's." Then right before, the group moved quickly through the alley, their boots quiet on the dusty ground. The city seemed even more lifeless here. Windows were broken, doors left hanging open. It was as if people had left in a hurry, leaving their lives behind. As they walked, Raoul's mind kept circling the same thought. Mira was the Queen's daughter. That meant she knew more than anyone about what had happened to this city, maybe even the entire empire. If the ruling council wanted her captured so badly, then whatever she knew was powerful. After 15 minutes, they reached the back edge of the landing area. From here, they could see the Valiant again. The alien ships hovered near it, scanning the area with thin beams of light. "Too close," Bren whispered. Mira pointed toward a nearby communication tower. Through the translator device, she said, "Shut, signal. Blind them." Raoul's eyes narrowed. "She's saying if we cut the signal, they won't be able to call for backup or track us." Aaron looked at the tall tower. "Commander, it's possible. The base unit should be in that small building under it. But if they see us, they'll..." Raoul cut in. "We're not here to be safe. We're here to finish what we started." They reached the building without being spotted. Inside, it smelled of rust and dust. The control panels hummed faintly, covered in strange alien symbols. Loma's voice came over Raoul's earpiece. "Commander, I can guide you through disabling it if you give me a video feed." Raoul switched on his wrist camera. Loma's calm instructions filled his ear. "That panel on the left, pull the 3rd lever." Now the silver switch above it. With a loud click, the hum stopped. Outside, one of the alien ships jerked slightly in the air, its scanning beam flickering. "They're blind," Aaron said with a grin. But the victory was short. From the street outside, they heard the sharp clang of armored boots. Alien guards were coming straight toward the building. Out the back, Raoul ordered. They slipped out through a side door and hurried down a narrow street. But Mira suddenly stopped. She was staring at a wall covered in carvings. The designs were old and faded, but they seemed to glow faintly in the sunlight. She touched one of the carvings, a circle surrounded by stars, and turned to Raoul. Through the translator, she said, "The Queen's promise, the city's truth." Raoul stepped closer, running his hand over the carvings. "What does it mean?" Mira's face was serious now. "The council lied. They made people afraid. The Queen wanted peace with humans." Raoul froze. "Peace with us, humans," she nodded. "The council said humans would attack. They told the army to prepare for war. The Queen refused. They removed her, took control." The words hit Raoul like a blow. If Mira was telling the truth, then the council had been preparing for a war against humanity, and the Queen had been the only one trying to stop it. Aaron spoke in a low voice. "Commander, this changes everything. Our leaders need to know." Raoul nodded. "Yes. And Mira is the only proof we have." They made it back to the Valiant side entrance while the alien ship still floated uselessly. Their signals cut. The crew quickly pulled them aboard, and the ship's doors sealed shut. Once inside, Raoul gathered everyone in the briefing room. Mira sat at the table, her small hands folded in her lap. "This mission was meant to be simple," Raoul began. "We were here to observe, not interfere. But we've uncovered something bigger. Mira is the Queen's daughter. The council overthrew her mother to prepare for a war against us, A war we didn't start. Loma frowned. If this is true, they'll try to silence her before she can speak to our leaders. Raul looked around the room. Then we don't. Let them. We get her home. Mira reached into her small pouch and pulled out a glowing crystal, placing it on the table. Mother's words, she said. The crystal projected a holographic image. A tall alien woman with silver hair like Mira's, her voice, soft and calm, filled the room as the translator worked. To the leaders of humanity, I send you this message and hope, not fear. Our people have been told lies. We do not wish for war. Together, we can share the stars. The hologram faded, leaving silence in the room. Raul stood straighter. This is the proof we needed. But before anyone could speak, the ship's alarm sounded. Loma's voice came over the intercom. Commander, more alien ships incoming. A lot more. They found us. In that moment, Raul knew their mission had changed forever. No longer was it about collecting information. Now it was about protecting the one person who could stop a war. Before it began, he looked at Mira, who met his gaze with surprising calm. We'll keep you safe, he promised, and deep inside, Raul understood that whatever came next, humanity's fate, and maybe the fate of the alien empire, now rested in their hands. The space station was quiet, almost too quiet. Raul could hear the faint hum of the old power systems and the slow ticking of the Valiant's cooling engines. Outside the wide viewing window, the stars drifted past in their endless silence. But Raul knew that peace would not last. The ruling council would be searching for them. On the command deck, Loma worked at the old alien console. Commander, I've connected the station's transmitter to our systems, she reported. We can send the Queen's message to our leaders. But Raul raised an eyebrow. But what? Loma sighed. The station's signal is old and weak. To reach human space, we'll need to boost it. That means using the station's main antenna. Aaron frowned, which is on the outer structure, exposed. Raul looked at both of them. Then we work fast. The council won't give us much time. Mira stepped forward, holding the small crystal her mother had given her. The soft blue light inside it seemed alive. This is the truth, she said through the translator. If humans hear it, they will know my mother was not an enemy. Raul nodded. And if the council hears it, they'll try harder to stop us. The crew split into teams. Raul, Aaron, and Bren suited up for an EV-8 and extravehicular activity to reach the outer antenna. Loma and Mira stayed inside to monitor the signal and prepare the broadcast. The moment Raul stepped outside into space, the cold silence wrapped around him. The station's surface stretched out. Under his boots, old and marked by years of micrometeorite strikes. Far in the distance, the faint light of the alien homeworld shimmered against the black. They moved along the station's hull until the antenna came into view, a long, thin structure pointing toward the stars. Raul opened a panel, revealing ancient circuits and tangled cables. Aaron, connect the booster lines, Raul said as they worked. Bren's voice came sharply through the comms. Commander, movement. At least for ships coming in fast from the east, inside the station. Loma's fingers flew over the controls. They found us, she said urgently. Mira stood beside her, watching the radar. Those are council ships, she said softly. Loma glanced at her. We'll hold them off long enough to send the message. Mira's eyes narrowed. Not just send it, spread it everywhere. Every loyal ship must hear it too. On the hull, Raul heard Bren's warning, but kept his hands steady. We don't stop until the signal's ready, he ordered. The ships were getting closer. Through his helmet visor, Raul could see their faint outlines against the stars, sharp, dark shapes moving fast. Aaron finished securing the booster lines. Power's ready. Loma, bring the antenna online. Raul called through the comms. Inside, the old station shuddered as the antenna powered up. Energy flowed from the Valiant systems into the station's frame, and the antenna's tip began to glow faintly. But the enemy wasn't waiting. The first volley of laser fire hit the station's outer hull. The shock made Raul grab a handhold to keep from drifting. They're targeting the antenna. Bren shouted. Not if we're in the way, Raul said. He moved in front of the structure, making himself a shield. Aaron glanced at him. Commander. That's not going to hold for long. Raul didn't answer. Inside, Mira stepped forward and activated the crystal. The image of her mother appeared above the console, her calm voice filling the station. Through the translator, the Queen spoke. To the leaders of humanity, I bring this message of peace. We are not your enemy. The Council has lied to you and to my people. They use fear to control. But fear can be replaced with trust. I believe our worlds can share the stars, not fight over them. Loma began the transmission, signals moving, almost at full strength. Outside, the alien ships split into two groups to keep firing on the station, while Timur moved to block any escape path. For the Valiant, Aaron, Bren, back to the airlock, Raul ordered. The signal's the priority now. They scrambled back along the station's surface. A blast struck close to Raul's boots, sending a spray of glowing fragments into the void. His suit's alarm screamed in his ears, but he kept going. By the time they reached the airlock, the station was shaking from repeated hits inside. Loma's voice was urgent. Commander, the signal's away, but the ships are trying to jam it. We need more time. How much? Raul asked. 2 minutes, she said. Raul turned to the crew. Then we hold them off for 2 minutes. Bren was already at the Valiant's weapon controls. The ship's guns came alive, sending bright lines of fire toward the approaching ships. One enemy craft broke formation and spun away, smoke pouring from its side. The station's shields, weak and old, began to flicker. Another hit would likely bring them down. Mira stood beside Raul, watching the chaos on the screen. She placed a hand on the console. Speaking in her language, the translator caught her words. To all ships loyal to the Queen, I am alive. Come. It was a simple call, but it carried a weight Raul could feel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, on the radar, 2 more ships appeared. Not enemy, but allies. They dove into the fight, targeting the Council's forces. The balance shifted. Loma's voice rose with excitement. Commander, transmission complete. The message is in human space now. It's out there for everyone to hear. Relief washed through the crew, but Raul kept his voice steady. Then it's time to leave. Set course for safe space. The Valiant broke away from the station, the loyal ships covering its escape. Behind them, the Council's forces regrouped. But the moment had passed. The truth was already spreading as the stars streaked past. In hyperspace, Raul finally allowed himself to rest in the captain's chair. Mira sat across from him, holding the Nadar crystal. You did it, Raul said quietly. Mira shook her head. We did it, Raul gave a small smile. You've just changed everything, Mira. Not just for humans, but for your people too. She met his gaze with calm determination. Then we keep going. Until the Council cannot hide anymore. Raul nodded. Agreed. For the first time since their mission began, Raul felt the weight on his shoulders lift just slightly. The truth was out, and now the fight was no longer just theirs. It belonged to everyone who believed in peace. The next morning, Commander Raul stood beside Mira in the Valiant's common room. Sunlight from the planet's sky poured in through the open hatch. Mira sat quietly on a bench, her silver hair shining in the light. She still said nothing, but her eyes kept moving, watching every sound and movement around her. Raul had barely slept. He kept thinking about how a child like her could be alone in a city this big. Where were her family? And why was the capital of a powerful alien empire so silent? Lieutenant Aaron, Raul's second in command, approached him. Commander, the scans are still strange. No big signs of life in the city. Just a few small energy readings near the palace. I think the place is abandoned. Raul looked at Mira. She was staring at a small metal badge on his uniform, her head tilted slightly, as if she recognized the symbol. When Raul noticed her interest, she quickly looked away. He crouched down in front of her. Mira, he said softly, do you know the palace? Mira blinked and then made a small gesture with her hands, like the shape of a crown. Raul understood. She was talking about royalty. Before Raul could ask more, Mira reached for the translator device on the table. She held it close, touched a few buttons, and then spoke in a language that sounded like soft music. The device struggled, making a rough translation. Palace danger. Hide. The crew exchanged glances. Commander, Aaron whispered. If she's telling us there's danger in the palace, we need to decide fast whether we stay here or leave. But Raoul was already thinking differently. No, we go there. If she's hiding from something inside, maybe we'll find out why this city is empty. The journey back to the palace was tense. Raoul took a small team, Aaron, Engineer Loma, and Security Officer Bren. Mira insisted on coming with them. She stayed close to Raoul, walking quickly but silently. The streets felt even quieter than before. The wind moved dust across the wide roads, and the tall buildings stood like silent watchers. When they reached the palace gates, Raoul stopped to study them. The gates were partly open, as if someone had left in a hurry. Inside, the palace courtyard was filled with beautiful gardens, but they were overgrown, the flowers wilting without care. Mira tugged on Raoul's sleeve and pointed toward a side passage. There, she whispered, the first human word. She had spoken. The passage led them into the heart of the palace. Strange artwork lined the walls. Tall panels with glowing designs of stars and suns. Everything was silent, except for the faint hum of old machines. Then they heard a sound. Footsteps. Raoul motioned for everyone to hide behind a pillar. Two alien guards walked past, wearing dark armor and carrying long, sharp weapons. Their faces were partly covered, but Raoul could see they were not relaxed. They moved quickly, as if they were hunting for something. Mira's grip on Raoul's arm tightened. Her eyes were filled with fear. The guards moved out of sight, and Raoul whispered, "We keep moving," quietly. They reached a wide hall at the center of the palace. At the far end stood a tall throne made of silver and white crystal. No one sat there. On the floor near the throne lay a torn piece of cloth. It had a royal crest on it. Mira pointed at it, then at herself. Raoul's heart sank. She's the queen's daughter, he thought. The reality hit him hard. They had stumbled into something much bigger than a simple scouting mission. Before he could speak, loud voices echoed from a nearby quarter. The same guards were returning, but now there were more of them, at least 6. "We can't fight them," Aaron whispered. "Too many." Raoul scanned the room and spotted a narrow stairway leading down. "This way," he said. The stairway took them into the palace's lower levels. The air was cooler and damp. Strange machinery lined the walls, covered in dust. Mira led them through the dark halls as if she had walked them many times before. She stopped at a heavy door and pressed her hand against a small glowing panel. The door slid open with a low hiss. Inside was a hidden chamber. Old crates and supplies filled the corners, and in the middle was a large table with maps and data screens. Most of the screens were dark, but one still showed a glowing map of the city. Raoul walked to the table. "What is this place?" Mira tapped on the map, pointing to certain areas. Through the translator device, her words came. "Council. Took power. Queen gone. I escaped." It was enough to piece together the truth. The ruling council had overthrown the queen, and Mira had fled. The empty city was no accident. It was the result of a silent power struggle. Aaron crossed his arms. "Commander, if this is true, we need to leave now before they find us." But Raoul shook his head. If the council is dangerous and Mira is the only one left from the royal family, leaving her here means they'll hunt her down. She knows too much. Mira stepped closer, her small hands gripping Raoul's sleeve again. She looked straight into his eyes, as if begging him to help. They stayed in the hidden room for an hour, listening to the sounds above. At one point, the thud of boots came dangerously close, but the guards didn't find the entrance. Raoul's communicator beeped. It was Loma back at the ship. "Commander, we've got movement round the landing site. Not human. If you're coming back, you'll have company." Raoul took a deep breath. "Understood. We're on our way." He looked at Mira. "We'll get you out of here." The escape from the palace was a blur of quick steps, quiet signals, and careful timing. Twice they had to hide from patrols. The closer they got to the gates, the more Raoul felt the danger growing. At last, they reached the empty streets again. The palace loomed behind them, silent but heavy with secrets. When the Valiant's landing site came into view, Raoul saw what Lilma had warned about: 3 alien ships hovering nearby, blocking the way. The guards from the palace had called for help. Raoul's mission had officially turned into something else entirely. He now carried not just the duty of reporting back to humanity, but the responsibility of protecting the Queen's daughter from an entire empire that wanted her gone. And deep inside, Raoul knew there was no going back to simple anymore. The night sky above Valoran Prime was dark and heavy, covered in thick silver clouds. From the high cliffs near the ocean, Kai could see the royal city far away, its golden towers glowing dimly in the distance. But the glow was no longer peaceful. It looked tense, restless, as if the city itself knew a storm was coming. A small fire burned beside them, giving faint warmth. Alira sat near it, her eyes on the horizon. She had not spoken much since the battle in the canyon earlier that day. The clash with the patrols had been close to close, and they had lost more of their allies. "You're thinking about the risk," Kai said quietly. Alira didn't look at him at first. "I'm thinking about what happens if we fail." Kai didn't need to ask what she meant. If they failed to deliver the Queen's message to the hidden resistance leaders, the invasion would spread faster. The enemy would crush the last pockets of free Valorans. "Failure is not an option," Kai replied firmly, though inside, he felt the same weight she did. "We've come too far for that." They were not alone. Beside the fire sat Terran, the broad-shouldered Valoran guard who had sworn his life to protect Alira. He was wounded, his arm wrapped in bandages, but he still stood watch, his eyes scanning the shadows. "We move at first light," Terran said, breaking the silence. "The city gates will be guarded, but the eastern water channel is less watched. If we can reach it, we can enter unnoticed." Alira finally looked at Kai. "You've been to the city before. Will you guide us through?" Kai nodded. "I know a way, but it's not without danger." The march toward the city at dawn, the clouds broke slightly, letting thin light spill across the land. The group moved quickly, keeping to the old stone paths that twisted through the cliffs. Kai led, checking every turn. The path took them past ruined watchtowers and silent villages, reminders of the war's cost. By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking the city. The air was filled with distant sounds: horns, marching boots, and the faint hum of the enemy's skycraft drifting above the streets. "We'll wait until nightfall," Kai said. "Too much movement in daylight." The plan was simple: approach the eastern water channel, enter through a hidden gate below the surface, and find the meeting place in the old market district. But as the hours passed, the tension grew. That night, under cover of darkness, they descended toward the water. The channel reflected the moonlight, calm and cold. They stepped onto a narrow ledge and followed it to the hidden great dot. Taren lifted it with a grunt, motioning for Alira to enter first. But just as Kai started to follow, a sharp sound echoed from behind, a faint splash in the water. The ambush apes emerged from the shadows, 5 enemy soldiers, their armor glinting. They had been waiting. "Go," Kai shouted. "Get her inside." Terran pulled Alira into the tunnel, but 2 soldiers rushed forward. Kai met them head-on, striking one with his rifle stock and pushing the other into the water. A laser blast sizzled past his ear. One soldier lunged at Kai, but before the blow landed, a sharp whistle cut through the night, followed by an arrow striking the soldier's chest. Kai turned to see the cloaked figures on the ridge above. "Resistance. Fighters. Move." One shouted out. With their help, the last of the soldiers fell. Kai scrambled into the tunnel and pulled the grate closed. Water splashed around his boots as they waded through the narrow space into the heart of the Sidai tunnel, opened into a hidden chamber lit by lanterns. There, more resistance fighters waited. Among them was an older Valoran man with silver hair and a deep scar across his cheek. Kai. The man greeted. "We thought you'd never make it." "This is Alira," Kai said, stepping aside. "The Queen's daughter." Gasps filled the chamber. The man bowed his head to her. "Your Highness, your mother's hope is now ours to protect. But the city is under heavy watch. We'll need a distraction to move you to safety." Alira's eyes were steady. "No, I will not hide. If my people are to fight, I will stand with them. The man studied her for a moment, then nodded. Then, tomorrow, we strike. The enemy will not expect it, but we'll need someone to lead the outer assault. All eyes turned to Kai. A choice Madakai hesitated. His mission had been to bring Alira here. Not lead an attack, but something had changed. Over the days he was no longer just a messenger. He was part of their fight. I'll lead it, he said at last. Alira stepped closer. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He interrupted. If we win tomorrow, we give the city a chance. If we lose, there won't be another. The resistance leader placed a hand on Kai's shoulder. Then prepare. The dawn will bring war. That night, as the fighters armed themselves and plans were whispered in the dark, Kai sat alone for a moment, looking at the faint glow of the city above. The mission had changed. It was no longer just about delivering a message. It was about standing against something that had taken too much. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. The night sky above the alien capital was quiet, but inside the palace, the air was tense. Rion stood near the tall crystal windows, watching the twin moons glow faintly over the horizon. Behind him, Leora, the queen's daughter, sat at a carved stone table, her hands resting on a small metallic cube that pulsed softly with light. This is the core key, she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried a storm of thoughts. It can control the shield that protects our entire planet. If it falls into enemy hands, Rion turned to face her. Then your world will have no defense. I understand. But it's more than that, Leora continued, her fingers brushing over the cube. This key can also awaken something old, hidden deep beneath the city. My mother never spoke of it in detail, but she said it was our last hope. Rion, step closer. Your last hope, Leora. You need to tell me everything. I can't protect you if I don't know the full truth. She took a slow breath. Beneath the palace lies a buried ship. It's not from my people. It's from your kind. Rion froze. Human technology, that's impossible. No human ship. Has ever. It's been here for centuries, Leora interrupted. Before my people even built this city. It was already here, hidden in the stone. My mother believes it holds a weapon that could turn the war. Rion's mind raced. A lost human ship buried on an alien world. It could mean advanced tech, far beyond anything the alien enemies could counter. But it also meant danger. If the enemy knows about this, they don't, Leora said quickly. Not yet, but they're searching for something. The attacks on the outposts, the spies in the capital, they're all looking for this. Before Rion could answer, a loud alarm echoed through the palace halls. The deep sound made the walls tremble. Leora's eyes widened. They're here. Rion grabbed his rifle and ran to the door. Stay behind me. 2 alien guards rushed in. Commander Rion, the eastern wall is under attack. An known craft have breached the outer perimeter. Move Leora to a secure chamber, Rion ordered. I'll hold the east wing. But Leora stepped forward. No, if they're here for the key, then I must go to the lower vault before they do. If they capture it, all is lost. Rion's instincts told him to refuse. But he could see the fire in her eyes. She was not going to hide while others fought. Fine, he said, but I'm staying with you. They moved quickly through hidden corridors, the distant sound of explosions shaking the floors. As they descended deeper into the palace, the air grew colder, and the walls shifted from polished crystal to ancient stone. At last, they reached a massive door, etched with strange symbols. Leora placed the core key into a slot at its center. With a deep rumble, the door slid open, revealing a vast underground chamber. Rion's breath caught. There it was, a massive, dark ship, its surface scarred yet still gleaming with metal unlike anything he'd seen. This is it, Leora whispered. The Ark of the First, before they could step closer. A sharp voice echoed from the shadows. Hand over the key, and no one gets hurt. Rion spun around. Out of the darkness stepped a tall alien in black armor, flanked by soldiers. His eyes glowed faintly red. You have something that belongs to the New Order. Not a chance, Rion said, raising his rifle. The enemy commander smiled coldly. Then you'll die protecting something you don't understand. In one swift motion, he lunged forward. But Rion fired. the shot hitting his armor and knocking him back. Leora ran toward the ship, the core key glowing brighter in her hands. "Keep them off me," she shouted. Rian moved like a storm, firing and shifting, using every bit of his training to keep the enemy soldiers from reaching her. But there were too many. One of them fired a stun blast that hit Rian in the shoulder, sending a jolt of pain through his body. Still, he held his ground. "Leora, now." She pressed the core key into a panel on the ship's surface. The ground shook violently, and a deep, ancient hum filled the chamber. Light burst from the ship's seams, washing the room in a golden glow. The enemy soldiers hesitated, fear flashing across their faces. The black-armored commander snarled. "What have you done?" Leora stepped back as the ship's hatch slowly opened. Inside, rows of glowing consoles lit up. "I've awakened the Ark," she said, "and it will never serve you." The commander roared in anger and charged, but the ship released a wave of energy that threw him and his soldiers back against the walls. Rian, panting and injured, looked at Leora. "What now?" She met his gaze, determination burning in her eyes. "Now, we take control of it and change the war." The ship's systems began to power up, and Rian knew that whatever came next, it would decide not just the fate of Leora's world, but perhaps the fate of humanity as well. And for the first time, he felt that this mission had never been just a mission at all. The great hall of the alien palace was filled with tension. The Queen's guards stood in a tight formation. Their glowing spears pointed toward the giant metal doors. Behind those doors, an army of hostile aliens waited. They had come to take the Queen's daughter and end the peace forever. Rian stood in the center of the hall, his weapon at his side. He had fought battles before, but this felt different. This was not just about him. This was about an entire world that had welcomed him, and about the young princess who now trusted him completely. The Queen, tall and graceful, walked toward him. Her golden eyes were calm, but he could see the worry hidden deep inside. "Rian," she said, "you have done more for us than I ever expected. But now, I ask for something greater. I ask you to protect my daughter with your life, no matter what happens." Rian nodded. "I gave my word. I will keep it." Beside him, the princess, Alira, stood in her light armor. She held a small dagger, but her hands trembled slightly. She had courage, but she had never been in a real battle. The sound of pounding began. The giant doors shook. The enemy was trying to break in. The guards readied their weapons, forming a wall around the Queen and her daughter. Rian took a deep breath, opened the side passage. He told one of the guards, "I'll lead them away." Alira's eyes widened. "No, you can't face them alone." "I'm not facing them," Rian said. "I'm distracting them. You and your mother will have time to escape." The Queen's voice was firm. "And if you fail?" Rian gave a faint smile. "Humans don't fail when it matters the most." The pounding grew louder. Pieces of the door began to break. Rian pulled out a small device from his pocket, a human-made explosive charge. It was one of the last he had left from his ship. He ran to the side passage with two guards following him. The enemy burst through the main doors, roaring in anger, the hall filled with chaos. But by then, Rian had already slipped into the shadows. He set the charge in a narrow corridor and waited. When the enemy forces chased him, he triggered it. The explosion shook the walls, sending a wave of fire and smoke through the passage. Dozens of enemies were stopped, giving the Queen and Alira a chance to flee toward the hidden tunnels under the palace. But the fight was not over. More enemies came, faster than he expected. Rian fought fiercely, using every skill he had learned over years of human military training. He was outnumbered, but he moved with precision. Every strike, every shot, was made to slow them down. Alira's voice echoed from behind. "Rian, this way." He turned and saw her standing at the mouth of the tunnel, holding out her hand. The Queen was already inside, urging them to hurry. Rian ran toward her, but an enemy leader, a tall figure in dark armor, stepped into his path. They clashed in a fierce duel, blade against blade. Sparks flew. Rian's arms ached, but he refused to fall. Finally, with one last strike, He knocked the enemy's weapon aside and sent him crashing to the ground. Without looking back, Rian grabbed Alira's hand and pulled her into the tunnel. The three of them ran through the dark passage, the sounds of battle fading behind them. They emerged far outside the city walls, under the light of 2 alien moons. The queen looked at him. "You saved my daughter. You saved my people." Rian shook his head. "No, I just did what any human would do when something is worth protecting." Alira smiled faintly. "And what happens now?" Rian looked toward the horizon, where smoke still rose from the city. "Now we fight for peace, together." The queen placed a hand on his shoulder. "You will always have a place here, Rian." Of Earth, for the first time since he arrived on this world, Rian felt like he truly belonged. This was no longer just a mission. It was a promise, one he intended to keep for the rest of his life. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that humanity's name would be remembered in the stars, not for conquest, but for the courage to stand and protect those who could not protect themselves.